So we're in a really crazy time in the gaming industry right now, considering we have two mega companies like Apple and Epic Games in a complex lawsuit together, and there are various different documents that are being reported upon now that they have to put the information forward on internal emails and memos and different things like that. And today we got news that Xbox was actually fully planning on Nintendo delivering some AAA titles, one of which being Breath of the Wild 2 in the year of 2020, and I want to talk about if that means anything or has any merit as far as an actual release timeline expectation, or whether this is all just internal speculation on Microsoft's part. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below. Hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now guys, today we have a fun little story to cover because we have now Epic Games and Apple, of course, going through their court proceedings to figure out how royalties should be paid to different developers and who gets what percentage and all of that stuff, and that's a whole complex topic in and of itself. But the reason that it's in the news today and it's actually Nintendo related is because obviously there is a ton of different memos and different documents that are being floated around in the courtroom, and they are now public knowledge. So this is a really unique time because normally us gaming fans don't get to see these internal documents that are being reported upon right now. And obviously we had like the big news yesterday that dropped that Samus was actually going to be a planned character for Fortnite, and there's no telling on how far along that was actually being pushed, or if it would have actually gone through all the way, but it was definitely in the works and in talks. Nintendo was in talks with Epic Games about doing that. So we're getting a lot of different information like that. And then today, one thing that popped up on the radar, which sounds kind of crazy, is that Xbox was fully anticipating Nintendo to have a huge 2020 blowout year with games like Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, even Bayonetta 3, and Shin Megami Tensei 5 all scheduled to be released at the end of 2020. At least that's what they were expecting. But to start off, guys, I want to read through the details of the article and then talk about if we have any opinions about whether or not this means Microsoft had some insider information, or if this was just them kind of going out on a limb thinking Nintendo had a bigger year planned than what they did. For all its monetary success with the Switch and Animal Crossing and even the global pandemic, some fans were frustrated when yet another holiday season went by in 2020 with no whisper of Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, or Bayonetta 3, and it turns out Microsoft may have been a bit perplexed as well. As part of the ongoing Epic versus Apple trial, a new document was published as evidence that included a rough outline of both high-profile Xbox One releases for the third and fourth calendar quarters of 2020, as well as the company's understanding of its competition's biggest upcoming releases. The presentation, which is from August 2020, reveals that at the time Xbox believed Nintendo's slate for October through December 2020 included The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, Bayonetta 3, Metroid Prime 4, and Shin Megami Tensei 5, none of which ended up coming out during that window. It also mentions a few other titles we know got pushed, but that did end up launching in 2021, such as No More Heroes 3 and Bravely Default 2. And it has a big ol' redacted bar under a footnote about launch titles for the PS5, possibly indicating that Microsoft knew about an additional game originally planned for the PS5 launch, which hasn't yet been shown. Now, I kind of have a different couple thought processes with this article, because on one side, you could look at the fact that they had to actually pull some internal Sony information, or maybe Sony games that Microsoft knew about that were not talked about, out of this document, and that definitely would indicate that maybe Microsoft is in talks with the competition, and maybe, somewhere in the gaming industry, there's somebody who's willing to leak certain information to them, because obviously they're probably not talking on the phone together, although Microsoft and Nintendo are more likely to be working together on something, but I'm sure they're not sharing each other's fourth quarter fiscal year plans or anything like that. I'm sure that they're not, outlining their holiday release windows on the phone together. So obviously it could have been an industry insider leaking this information, and that's why Microsoft had that information on Sony, and maybe they knew something we didn't as far as the Nintendo games. But I think that's actually much less likely, and you have to look at them actually expecting that Metroid Prime 4 was going to be a holiday 2020 title, and that being in there kind of was the biggest red flag for me. Now, I do personally believe that Breath of the Wild 2 is much further along than what we expect it to be, and I still think it's coming out this year in holiday season, or as a, if it did get pushed, it's probably to the first quarter of next year. However, this document does kind of clearly indicate that it's probably just speculation on Microsoft's part, because it doesn't take too much research to figure out that Metroid Prime 4 was actually totally scrapped like 2 years ago, and it's definitely a 3 to 4, maybe even a 5-year development type of game, and we don't really know how much they had to scrap. We don't know if they still, maybe salvaged some assets or something like that from the previous studio that was working on it before Retro took it back over. But regardless, Metroid Prime 4 is most likely out of the question for any time of even 2021, like it coming out this year still seems like a stretch. Like, I think it's going to be one of those things where that's a 2022 title at the earliest, and it could even be a holiday 2022 title, and hopefully obviously we get other Metroid announcements, but the Prime 4 one is one that I think if you're in the loop on anything, you're probably not expecting it to be, pushed out that soon. So this does seem like internal speculation on Microsoft's part to me. Obviously, we haven't gotten the Bayonetta 3 release or anything. That's one that I think we'll absolutely see at E3, probably with a release date scheduled and all of that. That's obviously one that fans have been waiting for a long time, but it is one of those things that I'm curious to know if there's going to be any kind of other internal documents that come out from these court proceedings, and maybe we get a behind the curtain look at some other people that do have this kind of information. Obviously there's really big names floating around, like Phil Spencer's emails are being looked at with other CEOs, and there's even like the whole xCloud is supposed to still come to other consoles, things that are coming out of this. So make sure you keep it tuned in here. If there's any other big Nintendo related information that comes out of these court proceedings, I'll be sure to cover it here on the channel. But I would love to know your guys' thoughts on what you think this all means, and if you think that Xbox did have some internal information and all of these games are much further along than we know, and they will all just be pushed into 2021, because obviously Nintendo did have a very light year in 2020, and I'm expecting them to have a big year in 2021, or if you think this is more kind of what I think, which is just their internal speculation, and it really doesn't mean anything in terms of the actual what we can expect for the timeline of the release window of these games. So make sure you leave me that comment down below before you leave the video today. And then also vote in today's community poll, where I'll be asking you questions around, what you think we'll see from these court proceedings, and if you think Microsoft was in the know or if they were just speculating. So make sure you don't forget to vote in today's community poll as well. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below. Hit the like button on your way out on this video if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.